Welcome to the Ayer Affordable Housing Committee, along with the Ayer Affordable Housing Trust Board meeting. In accordance with Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023, suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law, OML, public bodies otherwise governed by the OML are temporarily relieved from the requirement that meetings be held in public places, open and physically accessible to the public, so long as measures are taken to ensure public access to the body's deliberations through adequate alternative means. This meeting of the Ayer Affordable Housing Trust will be live on Zoom, and Ayer Affordable Housing Trust and Ayer Affordable Housing Committee will be live on Zoom. The public may participate remotely by joining Zoom, meeting ID 818-0509-7403, or by calling 929-205-6099. For additional information about remote participation, please contact Alicia Hersey at ahersey@ayer.ma.us or 978-772-8220, extension 142 prior to the meeting. And so I believe, Janet, do you want to call your board to order? And then we'll call ours to order?
Yep. Right. You all set?
Yeah, please.
Okay, I'm going to call the Ayer Affordable Housing Committee meeting to order at 6:17.
Thank you. And I'll call the Housing Trust is I started out I've already read the thing to get us open. First thing is our agenda. Could somebody from the trust please move to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Thank you, Sean. Do I have a second from the trust?
I'll second.
Thank you. I'm going to give that one to Colleen James, but thank you very
That's
much.
fine.
She got there.
No.
She got there first. Great.
Not upset.
Okay.
Not upset.
Okay. So next we have a presentation by the Devon's Crest Tenants Association, the DCTA. And Connie, before I hand it to you, if it's okay with you guys, we got a lot of people here. And I don't know how to get everybody on my screen all at once. So I'm going to ask that we kind of do a hybrid. If you would like to be acknowledged, please raise your hand so I can figure out, but in the software, if you can raise your hand. And if I seem to be ignoring you, speak up. I can only see 6 or 8 people at any one time. So, and I don't want anybody to feel like they're being left out. Is that fair? Thank you all. People who are used to me running these meetings know we're a little bit informal just because of that reason. Okay, great. Connie, why don't I turn it over to you? And you've got a presentation, correct?
I do. And that presentation will be facilitated by an attorney, Dan Carlston from Foley Hogue out of Boston, because I couldn't figure out how to do it.
Okay, so, Dan.
We'll get to the presentation in a minute, but I just wanted to have a few opening remarks, if I may, Mr. Chairman.
Of course, please, County, go for it.
First of all, I'd like to thank the Ayer Affordable Housing Trust and the Ayer Affordable Housing Committee for holding this joint meeting tonight. This is a matter that is just DCTA is very excited about. We have been working for almost 4 years nonstop, trying to secure the affordability of the housing units in the Devon's Crest neighborhood. Of course, the biggest obstacle has been site control, and we're happy to announce tonight that as of March of this year, DCTA's development partner, the Shockett Companies, and Brady Sullivan have entered into, it's a 50-plus page purchase and sale agreement with all kinds of due diligence provisions, but it puts us on track to get site control of the Devon's Crest neighborhood. And with that, be able to preserve initially up to 35 units and eventually the entire 114 units as affordable units. I'd also like to thank, and we've had an incredible team working together with DCTA, donating all kinds of free time on a pro bono basis. We've had Jeff Mullen and Dan Carlston from Foley Hogue, a premier law firm out of downtown Boston. Matt Thal, who's an expert in affordable housing financing out of Brookline, Massachusetts. Dick Bauer and Ann Jochnick from the Mass Law Reform Institute out of Boston. David Abramowitz from Goulston and Stores, again, another premier law firm out of downtown Boston. Of course, we have our DCTA members, Denise Peralt and Bill Barlow, and many others that have, we've had countless meetings, and they've been very instrumental in trying to direct this project into a direction that would best serve the tenants at Devon's Crest. Thank you to our state senator, Jamie Eldridge, for helping to secure a $250,000 grant to help us with our efforts, and our state senator, Dan Cena. Special thanks to Secretary Ed Augustus from the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities, who actually got the Shockett companies, their principals, together with Brady Sullivan at his office to push this deal to a head. And thank you to the Ayer Board of Selectmen, the Affordable Housing Committee, and Affordable Housing Trust for their letters of support, which certainly helped make all of this possible. And Alicia Hersey for all of her efforts in acting as a resource and helping to pull tonight's meeting together. So I'd like to actually, we have a couple people to present, one of which will be Denise Peralta, tenant at Devon's Crest, and Bill Barlow. I'd like to have them give a couple words to the boards tonight, and then we'll turn the presentation over to Rick Hankin and Bert Roediger, principals of the Shockett companies, who are partnering with DCTA as our development partner, and which it's their company that would actually be doing the purchase of the 114 units at Devon's Crest. So, Denise, Madam and Mr. Chairman, with your permission, if I could turn the meeting now to Denise Peralt for a few words.
Okay with
Perfectly
me.
fine with me.
Yep.
Good evening, everybody, and thank you for this opportunity for Devon's Crest to come before you at this time to discuss our situation. I'd like to thank the town and all the elected officials on behalf of the DCTA board members and the Devon's Crest tenants. It has been a long, unknowing journey since June 2021. Many of us could never have imagined that we could come this far. This has truly been a blind faith walk. We have worked hard and continued our ongoing due diligence to get where we are. Though there are some things to sort out, we are truly optimistic that we will reach our goals. We appreciate you taking the time out of your busy day, and we look forward to finishing the race. The town's continued support is critical to our chance of success in this really enormous project. And again, thank you very much.
And now, Madam Chair and Mr. Chair, if we could have Bill Barlow, also a tenant at Devon's Crest, say a few words to the committees.
Yep, that'd be fine with me.
Committees and trust.
Thanks, Denise.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for their interest. And I just would reiterate everything that Denise just said, and basically just wanted to add that the financial support that the town can give us is critical to our success here. And we appreciate anything that we accomplish tonight. Thank you.
So without further ado, Madam Chair and Mr. Chair, if I could now have turn the meeting over to Richard Hankin, president of the Shockett companies, who's the development partner with DCTA. And he'll actually walk the committee and trust members through the presentation that we have sent out to all of your members. And once Rick and Albert or Bert Roediger from his company are done with their presentation, I'd like to then circle back and actually articulate the specific requests and the reason that we're before the committee and the trust tonight. So without further ado, Rick, if we can turn, Rick Hankin, if we can have you take over from here.
Thank you. Thank you, Connie, and thank you to all of the members of the committee and the trust. So I'm Rick Hankin. I'm the president of the Shawkey Companies. We own and operate roughly 5,700 apartments throughout New England. We've been around for over 50 years. 95% of what we do is affordable housing in one way, shape, or form. And really, we're so grateful for the time that you're giving us tonight. But I'm also always amazed at folks, good folks in so many cities and towns. I'm sure there are other places you might want to be at 6:30 on a Wednesday night, but the fact that you give, your time commitment to help solve this incredibly important crisis. I may actually someday get paid for all of my work, but for you all volunteers, it's really quite inspiring. So thank you, and thank you for the time. With me is Bert Rodiger, who is our Vice President of Acquisitions and Development. I'm going to do a lot of the talking, but Bert, feel free to interrupt me. Bert, in addition to leading our development acquisition efforts, is a very, very deep and broad technical expert in every program that's ever been invented for affordable housing. I think he may actually have invented a few of them. It's been an absolute honor and privilege to get to work with the entire team, and getting to know Denise and Bill has been a pure joy. And we want to succeed for Bill and Denise and the rest of DCTA, if for nothing else. So again, thank you for the time. So I'm not sure how much each and everyone knows about the specifics of the Devon's Crest journey. Some of you may know more than I do, having been in town for a long time, and or the technicalities and buzzwords and abbreviations and lexicon of affordable housing. So I'm going to sort of move through the presentation, and if I'm overspeaking or underspeaking or underexplaining or using terms that are familiar to me and part of my everyday lexicon, please stop me so that we can make sure that everybody is sort of up to speed. So as you all know, initially built in the 40s and targeted to military families, Devon's Crest Village, for years was an excellent option for low and moderate income families. It's what we call naturally occurring affordable housing. Apartments that are available to folks who are, not high wage earners at rents they can afford. NOAA, as a class, is a dwindling resource in this state and in this country, because when typically naturally occurring affordable housing is like Devon's Crest, owned by a family, and it's been passed down from generation to generation. And the professional developers and owners would look at it as being undermanaged. Look at all the extra rent you could collect if you did a little more landscaping and you fluffed and buffed some of the apartments. And so they scour the world looking for places like Devon's Crest that they can buy based on the in-place rents, and then put money into, force out the folks who are living there, put money into the units, clean them up, make them a little nicer, a little newer, a little fresher, and then go and rent to people at market rents. And in the case of Devon's Crest, it's exactly what happened. It's such a common story, and it's absolutely heartbreaking. absolutely heartbreaking. That developers are going to make their profits on the backs of people who just need a place to live. So in 2021, the property was sold to Brady Sullivan, which is a major player in New Hampshire. I think they're the biggest landlord and owner in Manchester, and they also have holdings in Massachusetts and in Rhode Island. And they bought it like any other quote unquote value add developer would, which was, we're going to buy it, we're going to renovate, we're going to double the rents. And, we paid it, we bought it based on $1,000 a month rent, and we're going to own it at $2,400 a month rent. And we're going to make a bloody fortune doing that. And so that's what happened. So Brady bought it and went about its plan of raising rents so that folks would leave. And then when they got the units back, putting money into them, rehabbing them, and then re-renting them for $1,000 or $1,200 a month more than the previous tenant was paying. The result being, really painfully, the displacement and potential displacement of the current residents. And while not as personally troubling, devastating for the Commonwealth, because once this housing goes to market, it never comes back. And the Commonwealth is desperate for affordable housing, as you well know. So in an effort to save their tenancies and find a way to protect the units before they were all lost to the market, Bill and Denise and a handful of others formed the Devon's Crest Tenants Association. They began meeting. They were able to get a non-trivial earmark from and through Senator Eldridge's office to pay for consulting services, to fight evictions. They got pro bono legal help. And I will say, a lot of the folks, and Matt and Ann and others are on the call, Bill Bauer, a lot of the folks who have been involved, giving their time mostly for free, David Abramowitz, are some of the luminaries in the affordable housing business, not just locally, but nationally. And these people are all in and have been so helpful, and we're so grateful for all of that. Again, Shockett's been working pro bono for a long time, but we might actually get paid. But that's, at this point, not really what it's about. It's become an absolute passion play to be able to preserve these housings and go have a party with Denise and Bill. That's what I'm holding out for, is the party with Bill. Next slide, please. All right. So the tenants endeavored to be able to buy the property from Brady Sullivan and took a few runs long before I ever got involved. And Brady was not going to talk to the tenants because they did not believe, as seriously intended as they were, that they were serious potential buyers, because they didn't have a balance sheet, they didn't have experience, they didn't have a big bucket of cash. So from what I've heard, they just summarily ignored the tenants for a very long time. So the team, in its great wisdom, said, okay, let's put out a request for proposals and let's get a professional developer who can work with us to make a serious bid to Brady Sullivan. And when Brady Sullivan looks at the resume of the developer, the development partner, they'll realize that this is somebody who's got a balance sheet, who's done this before and knows what they're doing, and we can bring him to the table. Shockett was thrilled to have won that competition. And that was in the summer of 2023. And the goal, right, and the agreement, and by the way, our company has worked with nonprofits for 40 of our 50 years. Our largest partner is a national faith-based nonprofit affiliated with the United Church of Christ based out of Long Beach, California. And we've acquired over 3,000 apartments for them in New England. We also work with the Fenway Community Development Corp and did a project with them. And we're currently working with Alston Brighton Community Development Corp to preserve some housing there. And in every case, Shawkett ends up being a small P partner because of some of the vagaries and nuances of how the world works. The owner has to be the nonprofit. And that was our initial plan, that we would work with DCTA to structure and execute a transaction that would preserve the housing, right? That was, to my mind, the most important, both current and future, and ultimately allow for tenant ownership of the property. As time progressed, and I'll get into this in a little more detail, it became apparent that there was no way to structure a transaction where the tenants could have ownership immediately. And so we thought about, and you'll hear about how we propose to get them ownership while doing, succeeding in the other goal, which is to preserve the housing. So we're here today to talk to you about the project and then to begin a discussion about the kinds of resources that we're hoping we could encourage you to contribute to be helpful. And I'll continue on sort of the program and then hand that specifically back to Connie. Next slide, please. So I was out for a walk in Pasadena, California, visiting my stepdaughter in college when Shane Brady finally returned my call. This was November or October of 2023. At that time, working with DCTA, we had sent him a firm offer to purchase. He finally got back to me and basically told me in no uncertain terms that there was no price at which he was going to sell this. This is his business plan. This is what he does. I asked him, I said I would stay in touch. Perhaps you'll reconsider. But don't underestimate the residents. Don't underestimate their ability to use their political power and their political will to make this harder for you than you might otherwise like. So why not sell it to us? Take your profits, which you'll get some profits, and go do something easier. No, 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 no. Denise and Bill were never going to give up, and so neither were we. And the pressure campaign, which you all probably saw around town, continued. The secretary came out and made a visit. Kate Racer, who is sort of in charge of allocating the state's scarce resources, has made a visit. And I have never seen in my entire career a project where the secretary and Kate are as engaged, involved, and committed to making something work. Again, testament to Denise and Bill and the DCTA folks. They're really hard to ignore or say no to. So as Connie mentioned, I kept bugging Brady. I kept hearing no, no, no. Finally, I was able to arrange a meeting with Brady, myself, and Secretary Augustus. And lo and behold, Brady said, look, if you'll pay me the appraised value, not assess, I'm going to go get an appraisal. If you'll pay me the appraised value, then we can do this deal. It took another 3 or 4 months, but finally in March, we were able to execute a purchase and sale agreement. And we've been working like crazy to complete our due diligence. And what that means is we've done the full gamut of environmental testing. We've had our architects and our contractors all over the property to develop and price a scope of work to rehab the 35 units that haven't been touched to a standard at least as nice as what Brady has done in the 79 units that he's renting at market, which is a pretty good standard. My folks in walking the site, the architects and engineers, have been pretty impressed with the level of fit and finish. But we're going to see what Bill has to say about what he wants his unit to look like. But that's another story. We also, in parallel with doing our due diligence, so we've got to do a survey. We've got to do some other things. We've been working hard to find a private investor. And we've got good news in that we have somebody who is very, very, very interested. And was sort of a final piece. We've not been able to come and give you this level of detail, in large part due to a confidentiality agreement. Brady, having, I would say, through fault of his own, ending up in an adversarial relationship with the residents, is loath for information to get out that he's afraid, if the deal doesn't close, could be used against him. So we've been really, really careful, and knowing him and who he is, I don't want to get in his crosshairs for litigation, because it's my confidentiality pledge. So if we're overcautious, my apologies. It's just the situation. At some point, obviously, we're going to have to tell everybody the purchase price, and that is still confidential. The state has enough information to be able to rationally tell us how much money they can give us, and that's all part of the process as well. Next slide.
Rick, I'll just chime in that when the confidentiality is ended, the state will be reviewing the appraisal. They'll be signing off that it's a reasonable value. So the town doesn't need to worry that somehow they're funding excess cash going into somebody's pocket.
Yeah, I think that's really important. As part of the process, before the state ever gives anybody any money, they do an appraisal to make sure that, because of the state funds, the seller isn't getting paid more than it would be worth otherwise. So thank you. Did you skip a slide? Could you go back one? Dan? Is that the next one? That's the next slide?
Yeah, I think we're on the next slide.
Yeah, that's the correct one, Rick.
Okay, so as you may know, property consists of 37 buildings, most of which contain 2 units, with a few containing up to 6, spread across 4 streets. In what I see is a very attractive rural location with excellent access to intermediate roads, to Route 2. It's, when I first went to look at it, if you were the Martian being dropped in, you would think you were in a nice single family neighborhood. So, to my mind, the quality of life for the residents is great. There's open space, there's air. So, we really like that, and that we might be able to actually, the like the opportunity to preserve it for, you know, lower and moderate income folks. So as since acquiring Devon's Crest in 2021, Brady has renovated and re-rented 79 out of 114 units, hence leaving the 35, what we call original tenants, paying the old affordable rents in unrenovated units. As part of our due diligence to prove out the value, we needed to make sure that when they rehabbed and re-rented a unit, they were actually collecting the rent they told us they were collecting, and that they didn't have a ton of vacancies because they were asking too much and couldn't fill them, and that they weren't having big concessions. So you pay $2,400 a month, but I'll give you 2 months free. And all of that proved out. So the renovated units have rented quickly at their full market value and have stayed fully occupied, best we can tell. Next slide, please. Thank you. So we've been working through, and we've been iterating with the DCTA and all of the professionals to get to a program that we think can work for us, for an equity investor, for the state, for the town, and most importantly, for the residents. And so what we're intending to do is to renovate the remaining 35 units to the state's standard. And it appears that the 79 previously renovated units will comply, which means we don't think we're going to need to touch those units. As I said, we're confirming the rent rolls, right? Is it really full, and are people really paying what we're told they're paying? What are their expenses? All the environmental studies. We also have not yet begun, but must confirm tenant incomes for eligibility. So Brady has been loath to let us reach out to the residents to get income data. He's concerned, and we've done this dozens of times, where we go out to the residents and we tell them that we really need to collect your income data. It may result in lower rents. It may result in smaller increases going forward. Worst case, it's neutral, but we need your help. Brady is loath for us to communicate with the residents and deliver that message until he's sure that just about everything else that we've got to get done to be able to successfully complete the transaction has been done. He doesn't want us to go get all this information from the residents, get their hopes up, get their expectations up, only to have us come back and say, sorry, your survey shows that, you've got all these easements that were never recorded and it's a mess, and I can't get a lender to lend against this, for instance. So we're working on that. Once acquired, our company, our property management company, will operate the property. We've got I'm really proud of our long reputation operating affordable housing with local, federal, state regulators always paying attention to us. What we do, we would do anyway. But the check and balance is, because you don't know me, why should you trust me? The check and balance is that we've got the state all over us, and they think we do a great job. So we're really excited about that. There will be a recorded affordability covenant, likely perpetual, limiting rents and occupancy, such that 100% of the units will be limited to folks earning 80% or less than area median income. I'll get into the details on the next slide, but and that's really important, I think, because once that use restriction is in place, all 114 units will be added to Ayer's subsidized housing inventory for the purposes of your Chapter 40B calculation. And so, whatever the fiscal implications are of 114 units in Ayer, that's not going to change, but you're going to get 114 extra units in the numerator and none in the denominator. We found that to be really compelling in Franklin, Mass, where we did something similar with naturally occurring affordable housing, 288 units, that once we bought it, we put on the regulatory agreement, and the town was thrilled to pick up 288 units in the numerator with no change in the denominator and no change in services. Next slide, please. So, subject to, and Bert has cautioned me, right? Subject to final negotiations with the state, we expect that the 35 unrenovated units will be restricted to incomes no more than 60% of area median income, with rents capped at 30% of 60% of AMI. And let me just stop there, because those are terms and benchmarks that we in the affordable housing industry talk about all the time. Does anyone have any questions about what that means? Okay. It's expected that the residents, the 60% or less residents, will get project-based subsidies, vouchers of some kind that will go to the unit and will be available to the current resident. And when the current resident leaves, the voucher and the subsidy will stay for the next person who we will bring in, who will need to make less than 60% of area median income. The remaining 79 units would be set at occupancy of no more than 80% of area median income, with rent set at 30% of 80% of AMI, which is, that's the 40B standard is, 80% for what, for a minimum of 25% of the units. Okay. No current residents will be displaced if their household income exceeds the allowable limit. We expect that there will be few, if any, folks who make more than would be allowed under our covenants. If there are, they will continue to do what they're doing, pay what they're paying. And when they leave, we will have an agreement to re-rent to them in accordance with the affordability covenant. So if somebody's making 90% of area median income, they'd be counted as that unit would be counted as a future 80%. And when they leave, we would re-rent properly. And part of what we do as a company and part of what we all do managing affordable housing is this compliance function, where we wade through the regulations and make sure that we're certifying all our residents properly, their forms are being filled out, and that they actually qualify. And then we report all that back to the state or the feds, as the case may be. As a condition of any financial support the town hopefully will provide, you all would be among the parties to the affordability covenant. And, you would have the right to enforce its terms. I could never imagine a situation where we would breach any of them. But you would have, you would have rights, which you'd be able to use if necessary. Next slide, please. So timing. It's amazing how quickly time moves when you think you have a long time for due diligence and to get your ducks in a row. We've got until about May 18th to complete our physical due diligence on the property. So that means we've got to satisfy ourselves, as we already have, that all the environmental stuff is right, that the work is done well, and we need to be comfortable that there's enough money in the project on the day we close to rehab the 35 untouched units and to be able to fund whatever capital needs are reasonably anticipated for 10 years. And so we're working through those numbers. And once that finalizes, that will inform lots of other decisions, how much help we need from the state, all of that. Let me also just mention, as part of the and a little separate from the affordability covenant, as I said, the dual goals were to preserve the housing as affordable and get resident ownership. So part of what we will agree to with the residents is that at the end of 10 years, DCTA will have a right of first refusal, to be determined, specific language, to buy out the investor. So the private investor just wants to be in for 10 years. And the plan would be to sell to DCTA at the end of that 10-year period. So the day we close, we've accomplished the first goal, to preserve the housing. It'll take 10 years. And if all goes according to plan, DCTA will end up in an ownership role. And part of what Shockett is committing to is, over that 10-year period, working with the residents on, how do you manage this stuff on the ground? And working with them on what is a tax credit transaction? How's it structured? What does it look like? So sort of building some knowledge to be credible to tax credit investors at the end of the 10th year. So we've got until May 18th on physical due diligence. Following that, we've got up to 90 days to close. So the way it typically works is we complete our physical due diligence, and now all of a sudden we've got a good faith deposit, and we can terminate the transaction for any reason until May 18th and get our money back. Once we hit May 18th, for the most part, that deposit, what we call, goes hard, which means if we can't perform, we lose that deposit. After the end of this due diligence period, we'll have up to 90 days to get to a closing. And a condition to close is that we've got all of our subsidies from whoever's bringing them, the state, etc., in hand, and have the money to be able to show up at a closing table and write a check. If the 90 days come and we're not done, we'll have 2 opportunities to extend for an additional 30 days. So the goal is to close 3 months after May 18th. May, I was counting my fingers. June, July, August. I've circled in my calendar a September 30th closing, to be perfectly honest. If we can go faster, that's better. So we're currently finalizing our financial plan. As I say, the due diligence, we go in with some assumptions, we prove them out or not, we rerun numbers. That says how much more or less money we need, right? Interest rates are moving the whole time, right? So, that affects how much we can borrow. We are seeking an equity commitment from partners, and I've got my dream investor bugging us every day to get him some more information so he can give us an actual term sheet, that's when you're really getting there. And here tonight to discuss financial support from the town. So again, assuming all of this comes together, we'd be expecting to close in the late summer or early fall of 2025, which I don't know, that's September 31st in my book. Next slide, please. So I'm going to hand this over to Connie. But I may have gone on, and I do have that tendency. So apologies if I've given you too much information. But if anyone has any questions of us, Connie, is now a good time, or you want to just wait till the end?
If we wait to the end so that the members of the committee and trust understand what it is that we're asking from them.
Thank you. And Mr. Chairman, of course, we defer to you.
Well, I was going to ask you to see if you can put a little bit. This has been a very good and fascinating and very complete presentation, but I think we're getting near the end where people are probably itching to ask questions. And the plan will be to let the trust and the committee ask questions as soon as possible, and then other people who are involved. So if we can get to that point quickly, that'd be great. I appreciate it.
So, Mr. Chairman, Madam Chairman, as part of the financing to make this project a go, the state, of course, which is going to be looking at committing upwards of $10 million, maybe more than that, in subsidies for this project. To do so, the state looks for the locality, the town of Ayer in this instance, to also make a contribution, a good faith contribution towards the project. And what DCTA and Shockit are looking for the town to do is a contribution of $5,000 per unit. That would total $570,000. Whether that comes from the Affordable Housing Trust or in part from the Community Preservation Act through the Community Preservation Committee. I'm sure there'll be some give and play between the two. That's what we hope to iron out with the trust, the committee, and the Community Preservation Committee moving forward. In addition, we will be also approaching the Board of Selectmen for a tax incentive financing agreement. Again, trying to freeze the current tax rate for this property, or the taxes for this property, at their current level for a period of time is going to be critical to its financial success. So with that, Mr. Chair and Madam Chair, I turn the meeting back to you and welcome any questions from your membership. And by the way, just briefly, the last slide, if I may, if you're looking for some more information about Devon's Crest Village or the Shockit companies, we've got some websites at the end of the written presentation that was provided for you to check out as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Connie. I'm going to ask if it's okay. Yeah, thank you for to unshare, because that'll help a great deal in both Janet and I being able to see who is looking to ask questions. Janet, just to make it, is it okay with you if we ask for questions from the trust and the committee right now to start? And then open it up to people to Other folks?
Sure,
Okay.
that would be good.
And
And
I would ask, yeah.
no, I'm looking for peoples with their hands up. That's all.
James Stevens has his physical hand up. So James, why don't you kick us off?
Now, I think this is a little off base. I'll have to ask Rick a question about, did he say if you have a family in there currently, and if you find their AMI is over the limit, will they rent be increased or will it remain the same?
It will remain the same. So the assumption is that everybody is paying what the market will bear because that's what Brady Sullivan does. So, we can't just unilaterally say we're going to raise because you make too much money, we're going to raise your rent $200 because that's not the market rent. So the expectation is no, the rent will increase whatever it increases 2, 3, 4% a year, and they can stay as long as they like, and they will, But again, as soon as they leave, somebody will come in that is below 80% of AMI.
Thank you.
There will be no playing around with rent increases to force people out.
No, I didn't see it that way, but I just thought that if you would look at it, and if a person lucky enough to have the income over that limit, then you would think that rent would reflect their income. That's all I was talking about.
Yeah, the only caveat I'd make to that, Rick, is that at the present, there are a number of units at varying different rent levels. And to the extent someone might be in a unit that has a very low rent level, that has a higher income, that rent might eventually work up to the reduced rent that the state would require under the use restriction of lowered rent. So it sounds like a very complicated answer, but we've got, just as an example, market rate rents up $2,400 and some other rents considerably below that, and a restricted rent that would be somewhere in the middle. But the intent is to have everyone paying a rent that's affordable to their income and no dramatic increases in rent at any given time from where they are today.
Thank you. James, that answers the question for you?
No, but it seems just a little unfair if I'm lucky enough to have the income. If my AMI was over what it should be, I'll just be a lucky person to be able to pay the lower rent. But that's just the way it is.
Right. Here,
Thank
listen.
you. So, hey, Rick, I think we finished this one. Okay. I'm going to keep moving along as best I can.
No, my bad.
No, not at all. Not at all. I run a kind of informal, but I want to keep moving. Sean Copeland has his hand up, and Colleen put her hand up, so she's after Sean. Sean, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I actually have a few questions, so bear with me. But my first question is, what is the process? So 35 units would be the initial, and then what is the process to get the other units? Like, do they come into this after they become available? Like, how does that work?
The assumption is that when we go and get information from all of the residents as to what their income is, the assumption is that all of the people in the market rate units are at or below 80%. There may be a few exceptions, but based on where the rent is and how much income you need to qualify to pay that rent, right? So a landlord, if the rent's $2,000 and you make $4,000, no one's gonna, landlord's not gonna rent to you. So we can sort of back into the sort of HUD 30% rule. So if somebody's paying $2,200 a month, and that's 30% of their income, odds are they're making less than 80% of AMI. We will not know until Brady gives us access. And for the 60%, the 35 units, we're assuming absolutely everybody there is currently below 60%. But again, that's what we've got to prove out.
So the
Thank you.
initial or the purchase agreement is for all the units at one time. Is that my
Yes.
understanding?
Yes.
Okay. And then since these are going to be created as deeded affordable units, isn't there a requirement that they be a lottery system that includes like people that are on the state's waiting list for affordable housing? And does the fact that we're willing to keep people that are already there, does that violate that in any way?
No, they typically will allow an occupied property that's having a restriction added onto it to allow those folks to remain in their home. The state's rules are very skewed towards not displacing anyone. If there were a number of vacant units, then yes, those vacant units would be subject to a lottery. Typically, it's when you have more than 5 units, I think, is kind of the general rule of thumb. Then you'd hold a lottery for those 5 units and pick folks from that when they would be available. But the lotteries are more typically for new construction. This is what we would call a preservation transaction, where you're trying to keep folks in their homes, and the rules are slightly different on a preservation transaction.
But you do raise an interesting point, and I've got to talk to our operations folks about whether we will be required under these programs to maintain a waiting list, which is different from a lottery.
Okay. Sorry. And the other is assuming that the units that need to still be renovated, the renovations I'm assuming are extensive. Where will the residents who are occupying those units now, where will they live during renovations?
So, great question. The plan as we sit here today is there are a couple of vacancies. The goal is, and people turn over naturally, so the goal is to get to 3 vacant units. We will go and rehab those 3 units, and then we'll call Bill and we'll say, Bill, we're coming in on Tuesday, and we'll pack him up and we'll move his stuff to one of those vacant units, and we'll set him up so he isn't even going to know, except that he's in a renovated unit. His kitchen will be set up, his food will be in the cabinets, and then they'll do work on his unit, taking 3 to 4 weeks, and then we'll do the process in reverse. And we will cover all of those costs, and it will be as seamless and easy as possible for Bill.
Okay. I'm sorry, just 2 more questions. Sorry.
No worries, Sean. These are good questions. Go for it, please.
Are we seeking federal funding, and will there be a certain number of units set aside for Section 8 specifically?
So indirectly, a lot of the funding that's used comes from the federal government. Section 8 in particular is what we're intending to look at using. There's a similar program funded at the state level called MRVP, which essentially does the same thing. There's a very intricate set of rules for each. If we can get the state version of Section 8, we may look to use that because it has some more favorable aspects for a project like this. But ultimately, we'll be using whatever we are given. And there is, as I said, some of the funds that comes indirectly through the federal government, but the state, and most of all the federal funds, the state is the allocator, the manager, the controller of the funds, whether they're originally sourced from the federal government or sourced from the state government.
Yeah, so we don't think there'll be any federal regulation for the most part. Any of the money coming from the feds through the vouchers will be administered through a local housing authority or through the state, and that's who our regulator will be, right, Bert?
Correct. There'll be some federal rules, but the bodies will all be state employees.
Okay. And my last question is, so you're saying that you're investor only wants to be in for 10 years, and the plan is for the DCTA to eventually be the owners of that, and they'll have first right of refusal. At that 10-year mark, if they are not able to purchase the property, and the investor is to offload it, it does have to remain affordable. Is that correct? Because that was
Yes,
how it's
correct.
Yes.
Okay.
The use
The
restrictions,
use agreement will be recorded.
it's be recorded. It will typically run somewhere between 30 and 99 years, depending on what elections and requirements are placed on us as we do it. But the minimum would always be 30 years. It can never be in true perpetuity. You can only go to 99 years because of another arcane state statute, I believe.
Great. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Sean, thank you. Colleen, you had some questions?
Yeah, and I think that last comment or question was a perfect lead into what my question was relating to. Will all 114 units be deeded, essentially for that 99 years? Because I think, and Janet, I'll let you, back me up on this, but whether it's CPA funds or whether it's affordable housing trust funds, which right now have all come from CPA funds, we would then, I think, be required to have the 99-year deed restriction. Am I correct in that, Janet? If we're putting money towards all 114 units.
Correct. I mean, we do look for 99 year, because we've lost so many being 15 or 30 year. So that's been our agreement now, when we do up our grant agreements, that it's either in perpetuity or 99 years. So you're right, Colin.
Yeah, it's certainly the intent that these remain affordable forever and that the use restrictions survive changes in ownership.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Other members of the trust or the Affordable Housing Committee that may have questions?
Alicia.
I can't see everybody.
Yeah, Alicia
Speak
had her
up.
hand up. Alicia.
Okay, great. Alicia's part of it too. And I think Pat Bagney has one question, but go, Alicia, please.
I just wanted to know if you are going to write this under a LIP, local initiative program, or a LAU?
Unlikely, because
Restrictions?
local initiative is typically intended for projects that don't get any real cash subsidy. This would be getting actual cash subsidy from the state. So the LIP process would really not be necessary. The point of local initiative, it's a program I administered at one point in my career many decades ago, was created to allow access to essentially the 40B process and allow towns to get credit for affordable housing that didn't have a direct subsidy from some affordable housing program. It was a mechanism to set up use restrictions on projects that didn't have any other source of restriction.
Well, the thing that I'm looking for is just to make sure that they stay on the SHI list, the subsidized unit list. And so I assume that you would go through the state and make sure your restrictions accommodate the state. And that's the one thing that I do find is with the state, they do make you do a yearly review of everybody's income. And
correct.
You also, one of the things that I often do is I leave some units off the affordable so that if I don't have to displace people.
Again, the units restrictions will be recorded. They will require annual recertifications of the folks that are in there. They are structured such that they are not going to be displacing folks if their income increases over time. None of the current Massachusetts affordable housing programs require you to displace someone if their income grows. What it does require in what they call a mixed income property, where you've got market rate people and low income people living together, if someone's over income there, their classification changes to becoming a market rate person, which means even though they haven't left, they've left the count and you have to take the next market rate unit and make that a low income unit
Yes.
because that person's been reclassified. But all of these programs, none of them require anybody to be displaced if they increase their income.
Bert, isn't it true though that in a rental property, as long as 25% of the units are at or below 80%, you get credit for the entire development in the
Yeah,
SHI?
that's a whole different issue, but yes.
No, I'm addressing Alicia's question about
But
issue of.
that's a 40B. I don't know if this still qualifies under this sort of.
This will qualify as 40B eligible. It'll be on the subsidized housing inventory. That's the whole purpose of the subsidy and the use restriction and all of that process.
Bring the town to the 10%, I would think.
It will count towards the town's 10%, correct? And
Thank you.
in theory, 100%.
We will make sure, Alicia, that we work through this with you and the experts, and that we get it right. And we've got the use restriction. It's built into the underwriting and the value. So we will paper it any way that you need it papered, because it doesn't matter. It's the use restriction that's got the economic value or not.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Pat, Ken Diskin had a question.
Oh,
I got a couple of questions as well. So have you folks had the DOHLC come out and do any of the due diligence with you? To double check the buildings, what they're supposed to do?
They've been out to walk the site with us as well. They've looked through the properties. Part of our review process will involve them reviewing our plans and specifications when those are completed. We're still in the process of creating our plans and specifications at the moment. We've had engineers, architects, contractors, surveyors, you name it, environmental consultants. We've had people literally crawling under, over, and around all of these buildings.
So you've done a 21E or whatever the next level is on the property, obviously.
Correct. Yep.
Time. These units are on separate lots, is the way I understand it. Does that mean that every lot is going to get a recorded document for the restriction?
I believe so. That's a question I'd have to run by my lawyer how they structure that, but the restriction would cover the entire property, but I believe it may need to be recorded 35 times because of all the different lots that it sits on.
I think there's more than 35 lots over there.
Well, the 114 units that we are proposing to acquire are, I believe, on 37 lots. It's not the entire Devon's Crest neighborhood. It's only the ones that are currently in the ownership of this bundle.
And we definitely are anticipating the recording nightmare. I'm trying to just avoid it and hope the lawyers will be able to figure it out. But you raised a great point, and it's going to be a pain, but it'll get done.
Most projects have a single lot, for instance, with a big building on it. This is totally
exactly.
No, this is a little different. We are going to have to review our estimates for legal fees and titles and recordings to make sure we.
I was just thinking that, Bart.
Yeah.
Okay. Ken, do you have other questions?
Yeah, so following up on the existing people that live there. So it's interesting that you think that those people are below, most of them are below the 80% AMI. If someone has a lease, do you anticipate that those leases are 5-year leases that are there? Is that typically what Brady Sullivan does?
No, they're typically 1 year.
1 year, yeah.
1-year leases, that's all? Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's no big deal then.
Yeah.
So you there's obviously an independent appraiser that's doing the due diligence and coming up with the appraiser. That's a fee-based service at this point in time?
Correct.
Yes.
There's typically, we obviously can't get into all the numbers, but there is a process typically where the seller would have their appraiser and the state would have their folks, and there'd be some review of both on that. So it's fairly involved process of reviewing evaluations.
And is the Shockett companies, excuse me, the pronunciation, Are you guys a nonprofit business or are you a for-profit organization?
We are for profit.
Okay. But the partner involved in this particular angle is trying to get the credits that are allotted to a nonprofit or whatever, this type of.
Close. So they are this particular investor, and there are a few that do this. They are, best I can tell, aggregators of bank monies, which the banks get CRA credit for.
Okay.
So they're a conduit for banks to get CRA credits. So that's my understanding.
Yeah.
Just a last question about the units themselves. Did you happen to check with the you know how many building permits were pulled is what I'm getting at, and you know the value of those permits and the extent of the work that was done on the units? You obviously know that.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I think Pat Bagney Latimer, and by the way, Ron Morrison is with Pat on the phone. So Ron's from the committee and Pat's from the trust, and they're both in attendance. So Pat, why don't you go ahead, please?
Go ahead, Ron. Ron has questions.
It's Ron. I'm assuming when you've been talking about the income limits, but haven't heard the number. Are you using the HUD income limits? For instance, two people cannot earn more than $105,850 a year. They'd be considered moderate income. Is that correct?
Yes,
Yeah.
we're using the HUD, exactly the HUD, and I'm looking them up now.
The HUD Section 8 income guidelines. It's a chart that covers by different bedroom sizes. By different household sizes.
Right.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 persons in the household, and then the programs establish rent as a calculation based off of those numbers, where essentially the rents are set to an equivalent of 1.5 people per bedroom and 30% of that income figure as a cap. It's a just to be a little convoluted in how all these things are calculated, and certainly can give you a chart that shows how that all lays out. The state has a number of charts that they prepare that show what all the rent calculations are for a given area. And then we would have different levels of income depending on whether you're at the 60% level, the 80% level, or some other level, if that's additional requirements are placed below the ones that I just quoted.
Yeah, and you've got the same numbers. So I've got I haven't seen the 2025, but the 2024, the two-person household was 104,200 at 80%.
It's now 105,850.
Yeah. I've been looking everywhere. I gotta find because they just I know they announced them.
Alicia didn't get it to you. She got it to us.
Yeah.
We're gonna keep moving, guys. We're gonna keep moving, please.
Sorry.
Ron, do you have more questions? Or Pat?
Yeah, I do. Well, not on that specific issue, but the other thought I had was the average two-bedroom unit in town is now renting for $1,888. You'd be able to charge up to $2,400, correct?
So for
the higher level income category,
a two-bedroom would be 2,900.
29. Okay. Oof. The average in town is 1,888. Just as a point of information.
Yes, and we're modeling everything over what based on what we have seen from his in-place leases and our due diligence and his rent roll. So he's like 2,250, I believe, for a two, and 2,400 for a three.
Right. Well, we rent. Well, anyway, the average in town,
yes,
is 1,888. Yep. So he's considerably already over what the average Ayer renter will pay.
Yes.
If they go someplace else in town.
Yep. And that was a concern for us, right? So, are you, can you support this? Are you really getting it? Are you staying full? And the answer has been that he's totally full and he's getting those rents without concession. based on our due diligence, because we were concerned about that as well. Is he getting, too
I
much
think an
rent?
important point to
Ron?
make to the town here, Rick, is that, and despite what the current scenario is relative to that, the purpose of doing a transaction like this is to ensure that these units are locked in at a restricted rent over the long term. As inflation kicks in and things change, while today you might be able to find some units on the open market that are below this restricted level, by going through a transaction like this and setting a rent use restriction at a calculated level, you are ensuring that there is a long-term ability to have an affordability level in place if the market continues to rise.
All right.
Thank you.
And the one other question I have is, after 10 years, you said that the tenants association will own. How did that work?
So to be determined. But what we've done in the past, and others like us, working with nonprofits, is that somebody like this was the initial structure that was proposed, that was agreed before some technical issues made it impossible, is that to the extent that the tenants association did not have enough experience nor enough of a balance sheet to be able to borrow the debt and the equity required, they would partner up with somebody like us. So when we work with, not particularly well capitalized nonprofits, they are the owners. We go through a low-income housing tax credit transaction, and we do all of the work. We put up a portion of our balance sheet to put up the guarantees that the nonprofit can't. In exchange for that, we get a portion of the developer fee, and we get to property manage for 15 years, the term of the low-income housing tax credit use restriction. At the end of 15 years, we're out. We're done. The tenants own it, right? And they do with it what they will. So that's sort of the structure. Now, if somebody dies and leaves the DCTA, $50 million, then they're not going to need our balance sheet or anybody's help. But that's sort of how we think about it now. I don't know what 10 years from now the whole world will look like, whether there'll even be low-income housing tax credits. But that's the assumption for now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sean, you got your hand up again still?
Yeah, no, I just said, one of the things, I know Connie said it was for the select board, but I was hoping Carly could speak to the TIF portion of the presentation.
Thank you. Carly? You're on mute. Yeah.
There we go. Hi, everyone. My name is Carly Antonellis. I'm the assistant town manager. I'm here on behalf of the board, select board, and the town manager. So I've just very briefly heard, and I saw the presentation earlier this week on the TIF. I'd like some more information on that, because for a classic TIF, this project wouldn't qualify. It's really reserved for economic development, business creation, job creation. So I'm definitely curious on why that was chosen as terminology, or the your desired avenue to go down.
Connie, do you want to take that, or shall I?
I'll defer to you, Rick.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think that we use that and as more of a term of art than science. I think that it was meant to be sort of a catch-all, that we would love to start conversations about property tax relief of some kind. you know, we're going to buy it for more than its current assessment. You know, what, if anything, can we do to minimize the increase in the assessed value in the property taxes paid above what's currently being paid through whatever mechanism you all think is rational, reasonable, and makes sense.
Okay, so yeah, I wouldn't, I get what you're saying, but obviously moving forward, we wouldn't use the term TIF.
Okay, we will strike that.
Yeah, so the other thing is, if the town were to give any, I know you're going to be asking the trust and for, you know, that 5,000 per unit and whatnot, but if we were to enter into a special property agreement, like a special tax assessment agreement is what it's called, that would need select board approval. It would also need town meeting approval. And it doesn't seem to fit in the timeline as our next, we just had town meeting Monday night and our next one is not till the end of October. So I just want to put that on people's radar.
I think it's October 28th this year, not looking at my calendar, not looking, actually, I have my calendar right here, but yes. First month, 27th this year, October 27th.
Which was also my question regarding the other financial commitment. If we don't have town meeting again until October, but you are planning on a closing date in September, how does that work out in the timeline?
I don't know that we can figure that out at this present time, Sean. I want to say a couple things. This has been very, very illustrious of what you've taken us through. A great deal of information this evening. It's been very helpful. I think we've got a fair number of things that we have to discuss and figure that out. Sean, I don't even know the answer to the question of the town meeting. I mean, our town meeting is a separate bylaw. So I don't know what that answer is. And I'm not sure Carly would even have that answer right now. Colleen Creasor's got your hand up quickly.
Just a quick question about the trust funding, right? Some of the money that we have in the trust, does that need to go through town meeting to be spent? That's why we asked for it from CPC. So it may be that there's some funds available, but I don't know that our balance allows us to get 5,000 per unit without going to CPA and going to town meeting.
And I can speak to that, you know, any CPC funds, and I believe the trust would need town meeting approval. CPC, sure, I'm not 100% on the trust.
And my understanding, and this is an operating understanding, not a perfect understanding, is that the money is there so that we can show good faith, but we can't spend it without the town voting it at town meeting or whatever's appropriate action the town and select board would have to take if the select board's involved in that. Go ahead, Janet.
Jeff, I think for the trust, you better look at the bylaw because I think it is available. So we don't have to go through town meeting, just like the conservation trust, the conservation fund. However, CPA funds definitely have got to go through town meeting. I mean,
I think Janet's correct. I think the funds we can spend, but again, our balance wouldn't allow for the $570,000.
Exactly. Yep.
Okay. I know Ken's got a question and then I've got a question afterwards. Go ahead, Ken.
Thank you, Janet.
I should go back to Janet. So let's take it just a step further, that the trust funds can be committed. However, can we commit the trust funds to a deal that has not been closed?
Again, Ken, I don't know the answer, but maybe Janet can. I just don't know.
In other words, you could make some kind of an understanding, a memorandum of understanding, but I don't think turn the funds over until you have the bona fide sale.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah, I don't think anyone would expect that anyway. Usually these funds would come at closing simultaneously. It would be a condition of any approval would be a closing and a whole number of other things that would occur.
And I would make the same assumption, Ken. I just don't, we're getting way down the road. I think we've got a lot to cover between now and then. Other questions from people? Janet, you had something to add.
Yeah, I do, because on average, those 79 units, what are the rates that they're paying now for rent? Is that the 22 to 24 you're talking about?
Yes.
2,200?
Yes.
All right.
Rick, are you operating with an average price? Just can you share that?
An
Average per unit? Yeah.
I can't.
Okay, thank you.
I'm afraid of him.
No, I'm not asking you to do anything that's going to put the kibosh on anything.
As soon as we can, and we're getting close to saying enough already. You know, if you want this deal to close, we've got to disclose. But the rents, we've got the rent roll, and the rents are uniform. I think it's $22.50 for a 2 and $24 for a 3.
And I would ask the question, how many 2s and 3, how many 3s there are, but maybe we get that details from you at a later time too. Yeah, Janet, go ahead.
Yeah, hold on, Alicia. The other question is, you mentioned, about some federal funding, whether it's going to be project-based, Section 8, and it's possible that the Housing Authority or the state will manage those. Have you spoken at all to the Housing Authority with regards to that?
We've got we spoke to them a while back generally, but we need to talk to EOHLC and get more guidance as to the type of vouchers, because that will inform who it is that we need to talk to. So if we're MRVPs, that's the state administers those.
Right.
If it's project-based Section 8, that will be through a housing authority. So we just don't know. But once those tea leaves clear, we'll be talking to the housing authority.
Okay, all right. And then my last question is, after the 10 years and the tenants are able to go ahead and purchase the property, will they then become sort of like an HOA so that they can continue the maintenance? And do they have to take all that over?
I don't see it that way. I would defer to the tenants. What it would more likely be is a standard low-income housing tax credit partnership, where the tenants would be the 1% general and the investor would be a 99% limited partner. So, and as the general partner, the tenants would be responsible for hiring a property manager who would then manage, the property manage.
Excuse me, Rick, for a second. I heard you say that Shawkett stays in for 15 years on property management, and with a 10-year sundown on the initial investor, I just made the assumption that Shawkett may be around for 5 more years. Should the DCTA want to keep you there?
We will stay as long as they want us, but
Got
this deal will just be for 10 years because they may want to go get somebody else. Anybody who is helping to guarantee the tax credits is going to want a 15-year management contract, because things can get screwed up during those 15 years and you need to be in control.
Got it. Thank you. Does that answer your question, Janet?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
So, okay, thanks. Kurt Freskowski, who is here joining us, he's also the chairman of our finance committee, has his hand up, but I want to just quickly ask, is there anybody else on the housing trust or the housing committee that has a question before I kind of open it up to Kurt and, the regular riffraff? And just speak up. I can't see everybody's picture on Zoom picture. Alicia, please go ahead.
I just was wondering if we could have a better breakdown on the 79 units. So I know that with, say, a housing authority, each unit the rent is calculated on their income, 30% or 35% of their income. Is that the route that you're talking about going, or are you setting the rates at the 30% of the AMI?
It would be based on the 30%. It depends a little bit on the program. So we'd likely have some vouchers through the Section 8 program in here. The people in those units, it would be based on a percentage of their income. Everyone would be paying 30% of their income.
Mhm.
In a non-voucher units, it would be based on 30% of a calculation of the income category, but not 30% of the actual family's income.
So one of my problems with that is we're part of Cambridge, and what Pat and Ron, who are local realtors, were trying to explain is that we rarely can get 30% because we're part of the Cambridge district, and we don't really usually get that kind of tenants. They can't afford the Cambridge numbers.
We're assuming we're assuming that the vouchers, because you've got it for with the vouchers, it's rent reasonableness is the standard, and so we're assuming that if a market person is paying 2,400, that the voucher will pay us 2,400, and the resident will pay 30% of their income.
So a lot of times what I see is you might get some vouchers, you might get 16, you might get 20, but we do need to talk about that other percentage of the units and what kind of rents are they really affordable.
So our plan
Yeah.
is to get a combination of 35 vouchers and soft funding to make the deal work. So if we get 0 vouchers, right? If we get 0 vouchers, we'll be looking for another $4 or $5 million worth of subsidy that we would put in the bank, and we would use that money to subsidize the current rents that the 35 people are paying, which is around 1,100 or 1,200 a unit, which is way below 30 of 60. So yeah, we absolutely we hear you loud and clear, and we get caught in this trap all the time where we come in like the conquering heroes. We're preserving your housing, but sorry, your rent's going up to 30 of 60. And they're like, but I only make 30% of AMI. So we're sensitive to that. And you know, whatever input and guidance you can provide would be great.
But where does that other $3 or $4 million come from?
The state. So as we sit here today, as in the slide, if we get 35 vouchers that pay market rent, we need about 10 or 10.5 million from the state.
That would be for the 10 years or for the single year? Rick, that's 10 years.
That would be forever.
Thank you. Well, for the 10-year period that you're involved.
Well, it was essentially for the purchase of the use restriction, which is, as you've said, a very long term, if not in essentially perpetuity.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to double check on that. Thanks.
Yeah.
Sorry to jump in, but I wanted to make sure I understood that.
Now, if we get on the other extreme, if we get 0 vouchers, we're going to need to internally subsidize those people at their current rents and on turnover, and we'd need an extra 4 million that we put in the bank, and we'd pay principal interest like your 50-year mortgage, right? And protect the folks that way.
And I would assume that would that money be invested in order to bring returns that will help carry the load?
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay. Mr. Foskowski has been very patient. So without anybody else speaking up, I'm going to turn it to Kurt for his question. Kurt? Kurt, do you have a question? I don't think he can hear me.
Not sure you can hear us. Oh.
Kurt, you're muted. We can't hear Kurt. Anybody else have anything?
He's muted. He needs to unmute himself.
Yeah, cute. Kurt, can you unmute, please?
Well, he's still muted.
Yeah, I think he's lost his ability to.
Oh, now he is.
There you go.
I still can't hear him. Now, Kurt, we still can't hear you. So going back to, I'm not sure what the pantomime means, everybody. So Kurt, why don't you try and disconnect and reconnect? With that being said, if there's no other stuff going on, I'm going to ask Connie if we have further questions. Should we channel them through you?
Yes, please.
Okay. So Kurt, if you can't get your question put together now, we can get you an answer outside of this meeting. Okay. Yeah, Kurt, your audio's not working at this end.
Can you put it in the chat?
Kurt, can you put something in the chat quickly? But I do want to move us along because the trust has got a couple of things we got to take care of, and it's getting to be almost 8 p.m. I'm conscious of the time. I want to say thank you very much to the DCTA, and I want to make an observation. We've used two terms of art this evening that have caused problems. One, Connie, you were very good to tell me about a naturally occurring affordable housing as opposed to NOAA. And as I explained to you, we're working with NOAA. Kurt just says thank you to Bert and Rick. He can't figure out his unmute to work. So that's number one. And the other one was the TIF. Yes, TIF is something that we use all the time, but it's obvious that was a term of art to be used. And well, that may or may not be something we work on in the future. I am happy to, and I think Janet also. Janet, if people have questions from the committee, why don't we funnel those directly to Connie as needed?
Correct.
Okay. I don't think we're opposed to maybe meeting again at some point. And what I'm going to be doing now, just so that Connie and your crew know what's happening, is we're going to set our schedule for the summer for the Housing Trust. And I'm hoping that we'll set our May, June, and July schedule. So that will be something that we can share with you. So we don't go through the back and forth we went through over the last couple of weeks to put this meeting together. Yep. With that being said, Janet, do you have anything for the Affordable Housing Committee at this point? Because I have you as adjourning next on the list for you guys. And I was going to.
I mean, the only thing is, like, again, if you're looking for CPA funds, it's got to go to the October town meeting. But if you're going to be putting in an application, that application has got to be in by August so that we can have so the CPC can go ahead and have a public hearing in early September.
Yeah. So let me help you with that all, so you can put your calendar. Town meeting is the 27th of October. September 27th, all applications for CP have to be acted upon through a hearing of CPC. They ask and require the application to be written in August. I'll tell you right now, the sooner you get it to them, the better it works, because they have to schedule hearings and have them. So that's moving backwards from October 27th, September, and August. And please don't wait till the end of August. Some of us actually aren't always at our desks all throughout August. So I would just let you guys know about that. That would be the calendar.
Is there a specific application form or?
Yes, there's
work with Janet directly on it. Yeah.
Yeah, on the CPA or the CPC website on the town, their applications are there.
Exactly. And Connie, I've been successful in filling it out a couple of years in a row, so it's not absolutely 100% as confusing as you might think it would be, but it's pretty good. So take some time to fill that out.
And that's
I
about
want again. Go ahead.
I also want to say thank you, for the presentation. It brought forth, a lot of information. I also agree about the term of art for the two items. So with that, and if our committee doesn't have anything else to go ahead and ask, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
Like a motion that the meeting
Housing
be adjourned.
Committee. This is for the Housing Committee, correct?
Yeah, this is for the Housing Committee, not the trust.
Make a motion that the Housing Committee be adjourned.
Okay, James?
Second.
All right, Ron seconds. All right, so we can go ahead and adjourn. Anybody who wants to still remain, Jeff, are they able to?
Yes, please, you may remain. James, I would ask you to stick around for the Housing Trust side of the business. And Pat, also, don't hang up your phone, because you guys are important to us getting the schedule done, which is next. We also want to talk about ARAP very quickly. Thank you all, everybody, for your careful attention this evening. It was a lot of information, and I'm sure there will be questions coming forward.
Oh, Mr. Chair, just one follow-up question with respect to the housing, Affordable Housing Trust. Should we wait till your schedule comes out for future meetings, and then do we get back on your schedule?
I imagine that would happen. Connie, I know we're probably gonna. I'm not going to spend any time with the trust discussing this evening. Very much after this, I think we've got a lot of information came through. So my first step is to set our May, June, and July schedule so we have it in front of us. So that's an information that you have. Okay.
Very good.
And that, knowing what was coming down the pike from you guys, that's why I want to make sure that we get the May, June, and July, because with June and July being July, especially summer months, people do travel. And we typically meet the last Wednesday of the month, and we will, again, I'll be discussing that with our members to find out if that's going to work or not. You can stick around if you want, but I do want, we got to spend some time talking about the Ayer Rental Assistance Program next on our agenda. And I'm going to ask Alicia to start. And Bert, thank you very much. Yep. Rick, thank you very much. I do appreciate it. Denise and Bill, haven't seen you in a while, Bill. Good to see you. Thank you guys thank you very much for spending the time.
Thank you. We're grateful for the opportunity.
Yep. Yes, thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
Okay,
Madam and Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
All right.
Okay, I'll follow up.
Thank you.
At a later date for your calendar.
Yeah, we'll get it to you by email in the next day or two, Connie. We have to go through the process of finding our dates, and we have to make sure the town has the dates for us. We have to make requests. So it'll get you as soon as we have it. We'll get it to you. Okay.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. So, Affordable Housing Trust. Alicia, you want to take us through ARAP? You're on mute, dear. There. Mute's been killing us tonight, guys. Alicia, can you find the
Jeff?
I'm sorry, I thought I was muted. I'm unmuted.
No,
I'm sorry. I was going to suggest
go.
that maybe we do the dates first, because
okay,
some of this is a little private, so.
Okay. So guys, May would be the next opportunity for us to have a meeting. The last Wednesday in May is the 28th of May. Does that work for people's calendar schedules?
It worked for me.
Thank you.
It's probably not going to work for me, Jeff, because I think I'm going to be out of state to a graduation.
Okay. Thank you. And Colleen had to pick up one of her kids, so we'll have to work with her later. If it doesn't work, let me know. But Sean?
Yeah, it works for me.
Cindy?
Best of my knowledge.
Okay, so 5/28. June's going to be June 25th. Anybody that does not work for at this point? Hearing none, let's go with June 25th. And finally, July would be the 30th of July. Anybody have any big?
For me. Is it a Wednesday?
Okay.
I can make it work. I can make it work.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Okay, so we will make requests through the town offices tomorrow morning when they're open to make sure 6/15, the 20th of May, the 25th of June, and the 30th of July. And then once we find back from town, we'll move forward. Okay.
Is that the 28th of May or the 20th? Did I mishear you?
May 28th.
Okay.
Okay.
And
Fantastic.
if it's confirmed with the town, you'll let us know these dates.
I will, James, and I will follow up with your other email address because I do know that you don't always get on the town email. So,
all right, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep. Cool. Okay, now that we're a private party, except for Pixel 8, I'm not sure who Pixel 8 is, but they're welcome to stay.
Yes, they are.
Hey, Jeff.
And
Okay.
I
This is
just,
Chris
it
Valentine.
was just, it's a little complicated.
Thanks, Chris.
So
Thank you very much.
Yep.
okay.
By the way,
It's a little
conversation.
complicated, and I didn't want
Alicia,
to. Yes.
I got to stop you for 1 second. To everybody who is on from the Affordable Housing Trust, Pixel 8 is Chris Valentine. Chris Valentine is a resident who lives here in town who is interested in joining as an adjunct member of the trust. And we've not been able to get us all in one room for a while. So I want to say thank you for joining us, Chris. Thank you very much.
Yes.
So I'm going to guess that Chris isn't going to want to join anymore.
Oh,
I
no, you
think
guys
I know
didn't
enough
scare
about
me away.
Chris that you're gonna. There's Chris right there.
Hey,
I think Cindy, it's going to take a heck of a lot more than that to move Chris on. Okay. Hey, Cindy, good to see you.
Hello.
Okay,
Hello,
Alicia,
everybody.
yeah, sorry, Alicia, but I'm so excited that. So Chris has a family, and we don't always work on the nights for Chris. That's what's happened, and we haven't had meetings because we haven't had quorum. So it's just been one of those things. But anyway, and so thank you, Chris. So Alicia, go ahead with the ARAP program.
So we've done very well on our ARAP, except for we've kind of committed to 13 people, but 3 of them are not quite ready to be in, and we only have 12 grants. I have a leftover 5 months worth of grants. I am allowing each group, each family to get qualified as they can. There is a unit that is not qualified at this point. There is a family unit that is fixing their qualification because they had somebody in the unit with them that they didn't want in with them. And there is a final one that I qualified and approved her because she's already on the program, but she's always the last one on the program because she's the least, needy. Okay. And I can say to her, because she got on at the wait list, hers doesn't turn over for another 3 months. So into the next year. So if need be, what I came up with was that I would tell the last person that gets qualified of these 13, because for different reasons, I thought I had 12. The unit didn't qualify, but now they're talking about getting the unit to qualify. So I then approved another person because when the unit didn't qualify, it looked like they weren't going to be able to go forward. So after thinking about this, I thought what I will do is the last person who ends up qualified of these 13, I will give 5 months to them unless the board at some point wants to vote an extra 7 months for this one time period. And we don't need to do it tonight.
Yeah. And if I may fill in, so Alicia and I talked about this, and this can be a very confusing conversation if you think about it. I, of course, broke it down to numbers. 12 people, 12 months is 144 months we have. And because people enter and exit the program, not always on the 12th month at the same time on those 12 months, we do have this carryover from before of these 5 months. These people need the help. So we may not be able to give them a full 12 months right now, but we don't know if people will be leaving the program in the future. But this lets us help somebody for 5 months. Did I say it correctly, Alicia?
Yes, and if we feel that all families need it, we can vote. We do have the money to vote an extra 7 months if we want to as well. But we don't need to make that decision right now.
Exactly. We do have the funds because they went unspent in previous years for this specific use.
Yes.
Okay. Is that clear as mud, guys?
Yes.
Okay.
The other thing
very
is,
clear.
I will get a budget for you for the next meeting, or maybe even before the next meeting, to talk about how much we do have other than rental assistance funds. A couple things I want people to think about is, are we okay with not asking for our rental assistance funds or not asking for our CPC give, before we like in Springtown meeting, because we qualify people and we contract with people, but if we don't have the funds in the bank, we need to ask for it in the fall.
And we typically
we
ask
give
for
away
funding in the fall.
For any reason, we're going to need to ask for them in the fall.
Yeah, and we moved to the Springtown meeting this year after we made decisions last year about it. I actually think it sounds weird to go twice to the well in 1 year.
Yeah.
But I think going in the fall, because the program starts in January, that we need to have the money in our pocket in the fall. And I don't think it's being greedy. So let's figure that out, and we'll discuss that at the next meeting and take a motion on it and stuff like that and fill out the application so that we go into the fall town meeting having made a request. If that's fair with people. It's a belt and suspenders approach, but because we hadn't figured out what we were going to do, we waited until the spring. But I think we need to get back on the fall meeting schedule going forward. I think that'll work better for us. It'll work better for Alicia and stuff like that. I think that's it, Alicia. Was there anything else? No.
Nope, that's it.
Okay, great. I say this every single time, and everybody, thank you so much for all that you're doing for the trust. But I got to tell you, I get phone calls from Alicia sometimes, and Alicia is doing her best to make everybody happy. And boy, everybody seems like a lot of people surrounding Alicia at all times. I am so happy that Alicia's there. And so I just want, again, Alicia, thank you so much for all that you're doing.
You're welcome.
For this. Any general comments about the presentation we had today?
I think you did a great job coordinating, because there's a lot of questions and comments and whatever, because we had a lot of people who knew a little about some of everything, and they all wanted to let us know that they knew some about different things. So the meeting was really extended as a result of everyone knowing a little bit about his particular area and adding those comments, but it worked out great.
Yeah,
and thank you.
Thank you. And it was a long meeting, and I appreciate everybody's patience with it. But I think that information was, I mean, you could hear a pin drop. People are interested in hearing it, and I'm sure it's going to generate conversations. By all means, if you have questions, send them to me. We'll get them through to Connie as quickly as possible. Yeah, Alicia.
I don't consider 2,400 a low-income unit, an affordable unit.
Okay, so here's what happened. We had a first date.
Yes. Yes.
I'm sorry to say it anyway else, but it's that first day in class. We all got the information. We kind of got the syllabus. Now we got to move forward and figure out how to make it work.
I don't consider that to be a low income either. The people that are looking to get this done, that's a first offer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It ain't gonna be that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's also
but the ones that are already in there, that's what it's gonna be. But once they're out, we're gonna have to contract something lower than that. And like you said, the numbers out here are based in Cambridge and Arlington and a bunch of towns that no. This is Ayer Shirley. We're gonna get it done. We're gonna get it.
And I think honestly, I'm going to put this out there for discussion or not right now. 500,000, whatever the round number, 500,000 times 100, 5,000 times 114,
570.
500.
$500,000.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody's going to say $500,000 for 35 units because
No,
we don't.
For
Hold, Cindy, please, because there's 35 to start. And I believe this is one of those things that has to be discussed. That's all I'm saying. Okay.
Jeff, I was with you. I calculated the 5,000 is times 114, but 79 are already done. So what are they doing to you with those 79 units that they need 5,000 for each of them? That was my thought.
They're looking, yeah, exactly. And I think what they're looking for is, I don't know why. That's a question we're going to have to ask and get the answer to.
Looking for buy-in from the town. Eventually, the town is going to benefit from those affordable units. That's going to go towards our 40B 10%. That's what they're looking at it as. Like you said, first date.
And all I'm saying, Cindy, is that will be a question someone has. It's the first question I had, but that's okay. Cool. We've scheduled the meetings. We've talked about the ARAP. Alicia, would you like a motion?
Yes.
To handle that's 5 months? Okay. So I'm going to bounce back to that.
Oh, no. Oh, yes, to give out the 5 months, but I might come back to you because I hate to just give people only 5 months, but we don't need to do this right now, other than a motion to go be approved to spend that 5 months.
I would make a motion.
I will second.
That I'll make a motion that we direct Alicia to enter in the 5 months for the person she's identified at this point in time. Second that? Okay, Pat.
Second, yeah.
Thank you.
Good. Yeah.
Good. I'm gonna vote by name. James, how do you vote? You're muted, sir.
Yes.
Thank you. Cindy?
Aye.
Yeah.
Pat? Sean?
Aye.
And chair says aye. Thank you, Alicia, for doing that. That's it.
I'm sorry, just one more question.
No, go ahead.
On the Devon's Crest thing. Sounds we all agree 2,400 is not affordable. And maybe nobody here knows, but can we negotiate with them before committing anything that what we would like to see as a lower rent? I know they talk about like fair use or whatever, but at least a lower starting rent. I feel, it just feels kind of weird to give them $500,000 to re-rent the units at the same price they are now for a guarantee that next year they won't go up that much.
And Sean, you just said what's been on my mind. And as I thought this through, and Cindy, the answer, Cindy, you said yes, and I agree with you. This needs to be a point of discussion. I think the conversation, obviously Bert knows what the heck he's talking about. And, you know, the other question I have, Sean, is can they guarantee how many units will be coming to become more affordable in a year? Probably not. No one knows how long people are going to be living somewhere. So there's some unknowns there. And I would actually, I'm not sure, Sharktel's the place that we need to talk to about this, but, you know, maybe Janet with the Housing Authority has an idea of how long people stay in units as an average to this. But I'd rather have a better feeling for, you know, are those 70 some odd units going to come to us? How many per year in the first, second, third, fourth, fifth, seventh, eighth, 10th year? I'm pretty sure that's a question someone's going to ask besides me. And I don't know how to get comfortable with that information, Sean, along with what the rent's going to be. So maybe we have to invite Bert, I didn't get his, I don't have his last name on the top of my head, back in to talk about how that works. Bert Rodiger, yeah.
I'm sorry, I have to go.
Good night, Pat. Thank you.
In order. I'm so sorry. Thank you all.
No, don't be sorry. We're a 2-hour meeting. Whoever does that.
Okay.
And thank you, Cindy, for taking notes.
And now we're out of quorum. So
yes, I would move that we adjourn.
Yep. Second.
Thank you all. Good to see you all. Have a nice night.